Hi, everybody. It's Susan again, and I'm back with the Pisces full moon. It's been a while. I think my last upload was indeed the new moon. So it's been a couple of weeks, and I'm sorry for the delay. I had really wanted to do more than this, but I'm in the middle of a lot. I'm packing and getting ready to move indeed to Spain. I gave up on Belgium, and now I am just trying to get rid of my things and lighten my load. I'm getting rid of most of my belongings and just keeping the goodies. And I can't separate myself from my books, so I'll be schlepping those around as well. Um, I don't want to make this all about me, but I thought from a point of view of astrology, it was really interesting that when I first came to Belgium, without knowing, because I really didn't know anything about astrology in those days, I was purely a consumer. I came to Belgium in January 1991, and I was quite compelled to come here. I had no idea why, but I just knew I had to be here. And I, at that time, assumed it was because of the institutions, and that was what I needed to do because I'd studied international relations. And over the years, it became very clear that one of the reasons I felt compelled to come here, or that I was compelled to come here, was in some way to heal my grandfather's work or his experience of Belgium. My grandfather, my maternal grandfather, was a doctor in the Canadian Army during the Second World War. And he was mostly in Normandy and in Belgium. And so somehow that's, I think, where I ended up taking a big, sharp right turn and becoming a healer myself in many different incarnations, different forms over the many years of doing that, 25 years now. But I also wanted to just say from the astrological point of view that when I arrived, again, unbeknownst to me, this karmic energy was extremely strong. And there was a Sun, Rahu, and Saturn conjunction. So Sun, North Node, Saturn conjunction on my descendant, almost exact on the day that I arrived in Belgium. There were other things as well going on. Pluto was on my Neptune in my fifth house, and all of these things, there's many other things. I won't bore you with all the details, but just to say that it was extremely compelling when Pluto arrived at that degree point, and that is where I became extremely motivated to just get moving. I was still thinking in terms of moving within Brussels, but to create a space where I could travel from. And in the end, I just realized it was time to just get up and go. Things were not working out here for me in terms of finding an apartment. And I thought now is the chance that all the circumstances were such that I was able to just gracefully go and spend time with a very dear friend, very old friend of mine who's now also transplanted to Spain. And I will be living with her for the foreseeable future. All of it very flexible and very fluid. So I think I'm going to embark on a life of nomadic exploration for a little while. And I'm pretty excited about it. And Pluto has done his work, let's say, to make this all quite compelling. So I just wanted to show you how in some lives the astrology is so literal. This is a chapter being closed, Pluto definitively shutting the books and saying, don't look back. And it feels very good. It feels very comfortable like this. And I wanted to mention now about the Pisces full moon that there's also a strong resonance with Saturn. And again, Saturn is also about karma. Our whole chart is always about karma, in the sense of, how actions are constantly a recreation of a cycle that's already gone before. And with Saturn conjunct this new moon, this full moon, we also can look back into the spring or early, I guess it was late winter. Let me check the date so I don't make a mistake on that. Yeah, so 20th of February this year, 2023, where there was the new moon in Pisces. And that was at 1 degree and 21 minutes of Pisces. It's Saturn is approaching that degree now at the time of this full moon. And it will be, in fact, on that degree by the end of September. So last week of September, we'll be feeling that resonance again. So from now until the end of September, you'll want to call in what was going on in February. And then because the moon itself is almost exactly on the degree of where Saturn stationed direct in June of this year, 17th of June, which was at 7 degrees and I think 13 arc minutes of a degree. We have this moon at 7 degrees and 25 arc minutes of a degree in Pisces. And so think also back to June, mid-June. It's give or take a few days. It doesn't have to always be exactly on the day because these events are like a trigger that stimulates something. And so we tie in February, we tie in June, and we are seeing something now materializing or becoming quite prominent in our awareness. Now you can look around you in the globe and see what was going on globally in terms of mundane astrology, but also certainly go back in your own life, and especially so if you have strong Pisces in your chart, or even if you have strong mutable signs, because that will be by opposition with Virgo, for example, and by square to Gemini and Sagittarius. So I just want to confirm, you can see it here on the chart, that I use a tropical whole sign astrology. So for those of you who ask, it's always going to be based on tropical astrology, but also I like to tie in the nakshatras. Nakshatras are always based on sidereal astrology. The sidereal coordinates are the stars, because that is literally what sidereal means. It's of the stars. And the tropical astrology is based on our star, the movement of the sun. And it's not modern, it's absolutely very traditional. And indeed, when you're talking about sidereal measurements, what often people describe as Vedic astrology, that is always going to be with reference to the tropical astrology. So it's not like this is some kind of wacky new invention. And so I just want to clarify that. And also to mention, for those of you who are new, especially, and thank you for those who have the faith to keep subscribing even when I'm not posting videos. So welcome to all of you new subscribers. I want to mention that I absolutely do readings. I'm not doing very many in this next week to come because I'm moving, but I'm still carrying on with readings regularly. And I think I'm now taking appointments for October. So you're very welcome if you want to have a reading with me. It's what I do best. I prefer personal consulting. I like working one-on-one with people. But also later in the year, October, November, I'm going to be establishing a course, and I will announce that when it's clearer when the dates are going to be. Just get myself settled a little bit in my new place, and I'll be able to let you know. I won't be teaching absolute beginners astrology. You will have to know a little bit. You won't have to be anywhere near expert, but certainly, let's say, an advanced beginner, it would be good, because I want to get deeper into the meat of how to read a chart rather than the basics, which you can pretty much learn on your own. But all this to say that things are changing quite dramatically at this Pisces full moon. And as a reference to Saturn, for all of us, think of this in terms of letting go. So this is a multiple layers of messages of letting go. The moon is in Shatabhishek, and Shatabhishek is, it means 100 healers. And the energy of healing that is in this part of Pisces, or this energy of this full moon particularly, and where Saturn is as well, is very much about addressing things with a certain firmness and commitment. But it's about achieving a kind of a healing so that we can alleviate things that are calamitous or difficult in life. And in our letting go, we can actually achieve much more than in grasping and holding on to things. This is the message of Pisces. It's having faith and letting go. There's like that saying, let go and let God. And this is Pisces. And so in the spirit of that, you might also consider what it is that you can shed, and especially in the domain of where Pisces is for you. So it just so happens that this chart reflects my own personal chart. Now, this is set for Greenwich time, which means universal time, on the 31st of August, which is when the full moon will be, and it's 1:36 a.m. So if you are in, say, Europe or Asia, South Asia, Australia, New Zealand, and so on, that will be on the 31st. But if you are in North America, this will all happen on the 30th. And that applies, of course, to South America as well for my South American friends. And so this timing from now, as I'm doing this on the 26th of August, this timing is good to contemplate what it is that you can shed in the area of life where Pisces is found. Now, in my chart, I have a Cancer rising. So some of you I know do as well, because I hear in the comments a lot about that. And that puts all of this action in the 9th house, which is about our road to God, if you like. It's our relationship to our purpose, to our dharma. And it's also international relations, it's travel, it's understanding higher concepts or higher wisdom of life. And we also still find Neptune there, which spiritualizes all of that. I'll go into more detail about that Neptune opposition to Mars, which has it has perfected and it's moved on, but that was something that we have been gripped with in the couple of weeks before this moon. And so Mars itself is only just into Libra starting the 22nd of August. So that's tomorrow from where I am right now. So this weekend, let's say 26th, 27th of August, you'll be feeling that shift of Mars moving into Libra and away from that opposition with Neptune, which has maybe had us a bit confused. This is a little bit more clear now what we're doing, and especially as that is in a it's in a wide trine to Pluto. So there's we've still got the Pluto Mars trine active at this time, but weakening with every day. And so as I'm speaking to you, it's still quite strong. And so there's a dynamism about this desire for change, dynamism about this desire to move on. When we work with Pisces, that letting go quality for some people can be very scary. If you have a lot of Pisces, it's much less scary. You're used to that. Mutable signs have an easier time moving on and shedding things. And the fixed signs much less so, for example. So, and that cardinal energy is really good at starting things and moving into a new phase as well. So for cardinal and mutable signs, it's much easier to just kind of walk away, move on. And so this time of the Pisces full moon is really an invitation to see where we can let go. That can be ideas, it can be beliefs, it can be things that are not material, but I think also it's helpful to shed material things, because when you do that, there's an energetic space that clears out and that frees you up for a feeling of lightness and a feeling of letting go. And if you have difficulty with that, you can practice thinking in advance in terms of time approaching, let's say 5 years from now. You know, the things that you are concerned about materially right now, or even in your relationships or in your life at the moment, will that matter 5 years from now? And then keep pushing it and go 10 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now. You know, 50, 100 years from now, what we are clinging on to materially may not even exist anymore. It might be broken and completely dissolved. Somebody else will own it. We won't even be around for most of us. And even if our society survives all of that, much of what we think is very, very important and special right now is just simply not going to be useful or valid to us in time. So Pisces is beyond time. It's beyond our concept of what is graspable and material. And the more that we can work with that in a conscious way and really develop our understanding of this big picture scenario, the more we're free in life. And this is the ultimate message of Pisces, is to liberate yourself. This is the moksha this human existence, meaning the spiritual liberation, this liberation from this mortal coil that we're in, this body and these material attachments. And so the more that we can work with that energy of Pisces at this time, the more we'll be able to move into the next cycle, which is coming very quickly and which I'll make a video about soon, I think, as soon as possible, which is the eclipse cycle coming up in October. And that's going to be extremely stimulating, and there's going to be quite a lot that we can work with there in terms of our personal growth. So it's almost like you can practice clearing out, go back to February, go back to June, certainly what's active for you now, and think, what can I really let go of fearlessly? And I love the feeling of, when I'm giving things away, or even if I'm selling something, depending on what it is, I love the feeling that somebody else is going to make use of that and cherish it in a way that I no longer am, because it's no longer relevant to me in this moment. And the thought that giving it to people who might be more needy, there's a great organization here that furnishes homes for refugees, for example. It's just wonderful to think of them using my teapot and my kettle and my bedding and this kind of thing, to think that I would be so grateful for that coming from anyone else. And so sending off things with love, saying goodbye to things, wrapping up things that are no longer relevant for you. This would be a wonderful exercise for the end of this month in August. August 30th or 31st, wherever you are. But the full moon cycle it extends beyond just that moment. It's about a 3-day long cycle. So you could really go from sort of 29th of August through the 1st of June. And having this feeling with Saturn conjunct the moon, and especially all this relationship that Saturn is having right now with this Pisces moon, and with the next few weeks of time, you can really practice what you might call stoicism, or kind of an approach to life, which is simplifying things. Just simplify. This is very much in the energy of Virgo: simplicity, clarity, functionality. Virgo types, strong Virgo energy loves this kind of simple beauty. It's like form and function combined. And so when you pare back to only the things that you need every day, only the things that you need, let's say, in a week or a month of your life, not hoarding things, not holding on to things in such a way that you might, be thinking in terms of, giving it on generations down the line, and just give it away now, and see the joy in the face of your children or your grandchildren by saying, here, take this, use this, live with this. And that is part of this energy here. So that axis between Pisces and Virgo is, of course, the axis of healing, and that Shatabhishek moon energy is emphasizing that as well. It's not because of that the axis is regarding healing, but it's definitely a healing energy, and the healing can transpire in physical ways as well as especially spiritual and psychological ways. And surrender and letting go are very, very profound Pisces concepts. This letting go, surrendering to what is, surrendering to what you can't control. Pisces is way out of control. Pisces is the recognition of never having been in control in the first place, where, say, a Virgo energy is still striving perhaps to control, and letting go of whatever you think you've been controlling. When I look back again, just briefly, on my arrival in Belgium, and this the way that it manifested was so incredibly compelling. And it wasn't a conscious, there were certain choices, of course, that were conscious, but it was not a conscious motivation to come here. I never really gave much thought about Belgium up until actually coming here, to be honest. I think most people don't dream of moving to Belgium. Belgians are aware of that. I think I'm not insulting anybody by saying that. Everybody dreams of the bright lights of Paris or London or LA or New York, but not Belgium. And so, things like that happen, and they're happening through us. They're not happening because of us. So again, try to use this deep energy of Saturn, which is great lessons, great understanding our place in time. Now, Saturn, on a psychological level, with the moon only just 4 degrees away, can also make us feel a little bit isolated and lonely, or somehow needing to stand on our own 2 feet. Now, that's actually would be a good lesson. It's a lesson in maturity, which is another Saturn keyword, and a lesson also in good boundaries as well, not waiting around. The victim energy can be strong in Pisces. There's this martyring and victim energy that is also there very much in that axis of Virgo and Pisces. And so where Saturn is saying, no, you have to do this, you have to take responsibility for this. And so there's a letting go that is philosophical and spiritual, but there's a practicality that says I have things that I need to do in the letting go. So it's not letting go in the sense of giving up, or in the sense of, I don't know, bypassing or escaping. Pisces is also all of that, escapism, feeling that victim energy, saying, well, what's the point of any of this? I'll let it all go. It's not that. Saturn is asking us to take responsibility in some way for this energy of the Pisces full moon. And that can be in your chart in a different manifestation, a different place. And of course, it depends on how this speaks directly to your natal chart. So I will go sign by sign through that. I just check my notes to see that I've said everything that I wanted to in the beginning. Where I am from now, we not only have this Mars shift into Libra, but we also have the Sun opposing Saturn. So the Sun is in opposition to Saturn through from about the 22nd of August through about the 8th of August, I would say, in terms of the orb. And once that moves on, then the sun's opposition will be to the moon, and that creates that full moon. So a full moon is always in opposition. And so these oppositions that we've had, this potential tension, can feel limiting, it can feel restricting. Sun opposite Saturn is a wonderful get real moment. As we age, which is another Saturn quality, we tend to appreciate Saturn more. The restrictions of Saturn are actually something that we can work with. And Sun opposing Saturn is often a time where there's a big shift in our sense of what is important, or a big shift in our sense of what is necessary or real. And that can be in the bigger areas of life, bigger meaning things like our relationships or our career or our home, the structure of our life in general. It's an illumination of what it is that we need to change in this three-dimensional world, in the space that we live in and move through. And so where we have learned this lesson, perhaps a week building up to this full moon, we can then apply the understanding at the time of the full moon, where we become more aware. And that the awakening or awareness in our consciousness around the time of every full moon, but especially now at this Pisces full moon, is an opportunity to make peace with what was. I like to always say thank you to whatever was, because I'm here because of it. It's not despite it, but I'm here because of whatever was. And so thanking that, the people, the situations, the difficulties, the joys, all of it, and saying now it's time for the next stage. And so when we have the next stage, that's going to be when the moon when the sun then moves into Pisces as of the third week of February in 2024. And then we get the conjunction of the sun with Saturn. And that's going to speak to us in terms of a new cycle. So all of these things are food for thought right now. We still have Venus retrograde at the time of this full moon. Jupiter is still direct at the time of this full moon. Venus and Jupiter are just about in square. They're just moving out of the orb of a square. But the Venus square Jupiter, keeping in mind that Jupiter rules this full moon, is quite a good opportunity. It can be uplifting, it can be inspiring in and of itself, and again, that will depend where that's happening in your chart. But it can be just that boost that is needed in terms of a feeling of, okay, the change is good, the change is necessary and good. Now, Venus square Jupiter can also bring excess. It can bring potentially over enthusiasm, but I'm going to just say that with Saturn on the moon and having just had that Saturn opposition with the sun, that where the excess would have been tempered by the Saturn energy somehow. So I'm not super worried about that, depending on how it hits your chart, of course. Mercury is retrograde at the time of this full moon as well. And so Mercury is also in a trine. It's a broad trine, but it's still in a trine to Jupiter at this time. And that can also bring new awareness from the place where we find the Sun and Mercury in Virgo, and to where we find Jupiter in Taurus. And now we also have Uranus that has only just gone retrograde the day before this full moon. So Uranus is now for basically the last month, because it's such a slow moving planet. When it stations retrograde, it takes weeks. In fact, it's not just a question of one day, say with Mercury, but when Uranus starts to shift, the energy slows down and it kind of sticks. And there's only a gain or a loss of a couple of minutes when there's a station retrograde or direct. So Uranus has been at this 23rd degree for weeks already, and it's going to remain at the 23rd degree for a few weeks to come. And so once this full moon has taken place, then Mercury will move farther away from the trine that it had with Uranus, that it just about had, that was like a false trine in a way that it almost had, and towards the square with Jupiter. And so within a few days of this full moon, some of the understanding that you have and some of the awareness that you're building at this time will also be heightened by the exact trine of Mercury to Jupiter on the 4th of September. And I plan to do a separate video for this. Bear with me, because I don't know when that's going to come out, but hopefully a couple of days at least before the event. The retrograde station of Jupiter happens just after the direct station of Venus, and it's really interesting that they're happening on the same day. These things are worth paying attention to, because there's a strong significance when these events happen in sync, almost, within hours of each other. So I think I've covered all the things that I wanted to say at this time. Something will surely have been left out. I'm a little bit dopey at the moment because I'm getting over jet lag while putting my head in all my boxes at the same time. So thinking is not my forte at the moment. And that's not just because I have Mercury in Pisces either. I think I've said all the things that I wanted you to know, and I think we'll now move on to our sign by sign. And maybe just a little bit of a wink and a nod to the moon itself being a supermoon. Now, again, that's not an astrology term. It's a kind of a modern term. It's about 40 years old. And so it's interesting from the point of view of the moon being closest to the earth. It will be very, very big in the sky. But I've been following this for a very long time, and it's difficult to really measure any quantitative difference in terms of full moon compared to a super moon. It's about 14% bigger in terms of the visibility of it. It certainly will have some kind of impact. I'm not sure that we can actually quantify that. And just also to mention that it's often been called a blue moon. So we had a full moon on the 1st of August, and this is the second full moon at the end of August. That also is not connected to astrology. It's a lovely coincidence. The calendar that we use. It's not connected to astrology. So it's just an interesting phenomenon. And the idea of a blue moon is also very contemporary. It's only like 70 or 80 years ago, maybe just around the time of the Second World War or so, that this started to be called even a blue moon. You can look that up if you're interested in the details. So you're not going to see me getting excited about these things. If that means something to you, jump in, but it's just to make it clear that that's not an astrological term or phenomenon. So I won't be hyping that up here. So let's move on. I'm going to move backwards so we can find Aries on the ascendant. And so for Aries, and especially Aries rising, but it definitely applies to your sun and to your moon. You have this full moon happening in your 12th house, and the 12th house is what is hidden from us. The 12th house is what we could call everything behind the eyes, everything that's out of sight. And this is also out of sight in the sense of long distance. So people who are at a distance, people who are far away from you, and also including those who have passed on. So ancestors and the deceased. It's the house of loss. So you're getting this in a very pure sense. And this is always true, especially for Aries rising people, that all of these astrological events are even more pure. This is why with Aries, what you see is what you get, because there's no blending of different energies. It's very straightforward. Pisces is the 12th house, and there's no disputing that. And so the energies of the endings are even more strong. And so Aries, while you're becoming somehow reborn with the North Node moving through your first house, you also have this opportunity now to really shed things. Now, this can also come from unconscious patterns. And you can work with that a little bit and start to notice where maybe certain behaviors or habits or ideas have actually been holding you back. And this is a good time to really question that and let it go. This might have something to do with work or health, because the sun is reflecting that light, or rather shining that light on the moon that's reflecting it. And that's coming from the 6th house, where we also find Mercury. And so issues around your day-to-day work will be highlighted as well, or this could be your day-to-day schedule, day-to-day habits, obligations, commitments, and contracts, and difficulties that you might have in either one-on-one relationships or in some kind of business undertakings. And that you can see something coming up about that in that 12th house full moon. Now, the full moon is ruled by Jupiter in your 2nd house, so this might also have something to do with money or with your income or with your family, for that matter, because 2nd house is the family as well, everything that supports you. And so this is definitely a time where you can really question your motives, question what has been going on in terms of your own behavior or issues that might need to be addressed and dealt with, where you're becoming aware of these things that are hidden from you normally. Now, Saturn has been helping you with that already since March, when it entered into your 12th house. And so this is actually helpful in the sense of structuring and understanding what is otherwise usually amorphous and maybe not so clear for you. And this is a great opportunity while you still have the North Node moving through your 1st house, because you can really work with this energy of personal change and taking on a new role for yourself. That North Node energy is, a once every sort of 18 and a half year phenomenon in your 1st house. So a great opportunity for you to take on some new sense of identity, new sense of self, while this full moon is showing you what that is all about. All right, we'll leave it at there, Aries, and I'll see you in the next video. Oop, we'll go the other way. And so Taurus, this is happening in your 11th house. The 11th house is your hopes and dreams for the future. It's your aspirations for what you'd like to see in your life. This is also groups and friends, people that you associate with, whether that be for socializing or for political or spiritual reasons. You could call that your Sangha, for example. It's also your recognition for things. And so this might be an opportunity where you have done something and now you're getting some recognition, or the recognition is coming from friends, or there's an awareness around friends or around your role in these groups. Saturn has been in that 11th house for the past few months, so since March, and that will restructure your friends. It will change the nature of the groups that you spend time with. It will change. It will confront you with your goals and dreams for the future. It will confront you with the ways that you organize yourself socially or structurally. And that might require a change. It might require you to step up and say, okay, this doesn't really work anymore. And this moon might be highlighting some of that. So I'd say by now you have a clear picture of that, because Saturn has already come past these degrees and it's retrograding the second time through it. So by the time Saturn moves on through these degrees again over the next few months, then you're going to be absolutely clear what it is that needs to change there in those areas of your life. You have Jupiter in your first house. Jupiter's ruling this, so it's very much a role that you are taking on. It might be a sense of an expanded role in that 11th house. The 11th house is a money house as well, and of course Jupiter in Taurus is also a reflection of money, and money is something that concerns Taurus very much. It's very connected to that earthly use of resources and values and money. And so there's something that you might be feeling more driven by, more optimistic about. But with Jupiter about to station retrograde on the 4th of September, you might find that it's not quite ready to manifest, or the thing that you thought was evolving is now requiring a little bit of change. I'll talk about that in another video coming up, but this, it's not necessarily negative. It's just that it might require a little bit more tweaking before you get to where you want to go. But definitely reflect on your ambitions and your drives, your motivations for the future, and the people you hang out with and who's got your back in doing all of that. The sun is in the 5th house along with Mercury retrograde now. And so this is an opportunity for you, if you are, for example, in business, to see where that is taking shape in terms of what you do out in the world. And the 5th house, of course, is also about creative projects, your creativity in general, your self-expression, and also children. So these things might manifest in terms of, let's say, something that is happening around the lives of your children. It's manifesting out in your social circle or out in your life, or changing your plans for the future. That would be unsurprising. And that is something that might be just now coming into your awareness. Your ruler, Venus, is in the 4th house now retrograde until the 4th of September. She's almost at the degree that she will station. She's going to be stationing at 12 degrees, 12 minutes of Leo. And that's something to pay attention to, whatever's going on at home, or whatever's going on in terms of your family, your lineage, your property, that's fixed property like home, land, that kind of thing, or house and home in general. There's something there that will become clear, that will perhaps get unstuck around this time, and help you to move forward in that. So it's looking pretty good for Taurus, whether it's sun, moon, or rising sign. So make the best of that, Taurus, and I will see you in the next video. And so Gemini, this is happening in your 10th house of career. The having Saturn in the 10th house is actually quite helpful in terms of career and status. And now the moon is going to show you what the result is of the effort that you've put in. And you might have an opportunity now to recognize what it is that's happened. And you can go back to February, for example, and then June. And of course, now what's going on now, and see if there's anything that starts to make sense in a pattern for you, where you realize, this is the thing, perhaps I need to move on from this, or it's time for me to actually get recognition, because the moon in the 10th house is all about recognition as well. And with Saturn there, it can be a pattern of either heightened responsibility, increased responsibility, or there can be a feeling of restriction around that. There may be a sense of it's not quite happening the way that you want it to, but don't worry about that. Saturn makes you work harder, but it brings results. So Saturn always rewards hard work. It rewards sincerity and effort and integrity. And this is definitely where you'll find the benefits. And so you might not see that until later on in the year, for example. You might not see that until even February or March of 2024, when Saturn and the sun and the moon come back together again. But nonetheless, keep up the effort. It's definitely a good time for you to achieve success in your status. Now, this can also be status in terms of your social status, relationship status, for example. So if you're, it's very common for people to get married when Saturn is in the angular houses, or to establish a long relationship. And so if there are hiccups in that sense, then work on it. Saturn requires effort and adjustment. And so it's not to say that you should tolerate anything, but at the same time, it might be something that is resolvable, and that it will give you then the long-lasting results. So you have Jupiter in the 12th house, which is ruling this moon. And that is really helpful in terms of feeling hopeful, feeling an expanded sense of what is possible from a place of the unconscious. This can also heighten your spiritual energy, and it might have some kind of connection also to ancestors or to people far away from you, support coming from them. Also, and possibly even teachers who are deceased, especially if that's a spiritual teacher, with Jupiter in the 12th. And your ruler, Mercury, is retrograde and in the 4th house. So it's not conjunct this sun or opposing the moon, but it's certainly a factor because it's in the same house. So it's co-present with the sun. It's broadly conjunct the sun and coming towards the sun because it's retrograde as the sun moves towards it. And so you're here thinking perhaps about the combination between your work and personal obligations and how that might fit for you, how that might work for you. And equally the sense of your overall sense of psychological happiness and well-being. And this is all something that is being reflected or acted upon at this time of the full moon. So whatever it is that you're creating as a foundation for yourself, psychologically or physically speaking, this can be reflected in how you are finding success in the career area of your life. I think that's about it for now, Gemini, and I'll see you in the next video. Cancer, this is happening in your 9th house. This is the house I mentioned in the beginning part of the video, in the overview. So you can go back to that if you didn't hear that, because this is my rising sign. So this is Cancer, Sun, and Moon. It applies particularly strongly to ascendant signs because it's going to show up. It'll manifest in that part of your life more obviously. And so in this case, it's the 9th house. So there's a new awareness of a sense of purpose, of a sense of your role in your life and what it is that you'd like to do, in a big sense, your philosophy of life. What would that philosophy look like right now based on the last few months of transformation? So since having Saturn there since March, then that has been a question. It has been a sense of what can I achieve now? What am I here to do? There's an increased sense of responsibility or a maturity or a sense of growing into something that is new. When Saturn goes through that 9th house, you will change your sense of purpose in life. It doesn't mean that you're on the wrong track necessarily. For some of you, it might mean that, but it actually is more that you're going to be developing a heightened sense of that purpose and a kind of a leveling up or a new responsibility around that, a new sense of maturity around that. And so this is definitely a time for you to explore what it is that's important for you, what it is that you need to take forward, what it is that you need to let go of so that you're no longer burdened by that. and especially think about your attitudes and your beliefs and your thoughts around things in terms of all of that. With the sun in the third house, and especially with Mercury there as well, then you're definitely going to be very busy around community, around your neighbors, around friends. With Mercury retrograde in that place, you might have people coming back into your life, friends from the past, or people coming back after a period of absence or a shifting of roles, let's say. And so you can find a lot of support in that area of your life. If this is about work, for example, this is a great time to contemplate what it is that your message is, what it is that you want to do, how you want to do it. This is the house of commerce. It's communication, it's your day-to-day exchanges of all kinds. Mercury is very much related to our relationships. We don't always think about it that way. We always think about Venus in terms of relationships, but Mercury is everything that is connecting us. So our communications and the way we express ourselves. So this is changing. This is something that you're reconsidering at this time because it is retrograde, and that is pulling in the trine, the approaching trine to Jupiter in your 11th house. And the 11th house is friends as well, and groups, and who you hang out with, the people that support you, the people that you connect with in areas that might involve your spiritual life or political life. The 11th house is also a money house. And so there might be something there that is also calling out to you. It's squaring to Venus also in the house of income and money. And so all of this is under review. If you want to know more about that, I do have a video on Jupiter in Taurus and also on Venus in Leo. So you can find more details about that. And for now, we'll leave it at that. So good luck with all of this, Cancer, keeping in mind that the moon is your ruler. So all lunations, all full moons, new moons, quarter moons, all those things are very important for you, Cancer. And you'll be feeling this. You'll be sensing it quite emotionally. So best wishes for that, and I'll see you in the next video. Leo, you have this happening in your 8th house, and so there might be some realization around your unconscious processes or your sense of need or fears around things, a sense of obstacles or a feeling of being supported or not. This is the 2nd house and 8th house axis, things that support you through your own initiative or through the help of others. Now, since Saturn has been there, you might be feeling a little bit thrown back on your own resources since March. Saturn going through the 8th house often delays or restricts or withholds support coming from other people. It is an opportunity for you to get really clear on how you share resources and who you depend upon. And with the sun in the 2nd house opposing the moon at this moment, you might become more aware of how you need to manifest money, whether that be through income or through your own resources, how it is that you might need to reorganize that or take more responsibility for that than you might otherwise need to do. Depends on your natal chart. This is also the house of marriage, where the moon is in the 8th house. This can be something that you're aware of in terms of the quality of your intimacy, the quality of your relationships, whether it's an actual marriage or just really important people. This can even include clients, the things that you receive from clients, for example, money that you get from clients. And so with the moon conjunct Saturn, there might be a sense of not getting what you need or not really feeling supported emotionally in your intimate relationships. Now, intimacy is not always sexual. It's also, psychological and emotional. And there might be a feeling of not really being ready to share something or being a little bit restricted around sharing something or feeling that you have nobody to share it with. And so you definitely want to reflect on what it is that you need emotionally and how you want to see your relationships manifest. And with Venus in your 1st house, this is probably easier than at most times because Venus is very, it provides a really loving and charming energy while it's in the 1st house. And you've got Venus there for 4 months. So you're really lucky Leo, you've got her retrograde at the moment, and Venus will be turning around and stationing direct on the 4th of September. So you still have until the 8th of October to enjoy all of this Venus energy. And she's squaring up to Jupiter, which is ruling this moon in your 10th house of career. And so it looks like there can be some real success, some real worldly success, some real sense of possibility and open, ambition or drive, success in terms of your social status. But just at this particular moment, there might be a feeling of not really being sure or needing to really be clear about things in terms of what it is that you need very personally. The 8th house is things that are hidden. It's stuff that you're realizing that you may or may not be aware of or ready to deal with at this point. So let it all happen. Don't rush into any change or any decisions at this point. Let Venus station and go direct, and then you'll see that things become easier, even if the realizations themselves are not necessarily easy. And again, this depends on your natal chart. So we'll leave it there for Leo, and I'll see you in the next video. Virgo, this is important for you because it's happening in your 1st and 7th house axis. So while the sun is in your sign, you have the Pisces new moon, or rather the full moon, in your 7th house of relationship. Everybody who's across the table from you, everybody you connect with in an intimate way, whether that's business partners or your lover or your most important friends. And so here there's a realization around all that. What's going on in my relationships? This might be an issue around boundaries, especially with Saturn there, that there's a new understanding of the importance of boundaries to allow for a relationship to be more solid, to be more productive, to be more suitable for you. You have a tendency, Virgo, especially Virgo rising, to be extremely generous and even self-denying in relationship. That's part of that victim martyr role that is not terribly pretty, but we've got to admit that it's there. It's helpful to remember that it's there, because every now and then unconsciously we can get tripped up in that dynamic. And so perhaps the moon is showing you here where you are on that spectrum of that dynamic, and to what extent that's working for you or your relationships, and calling in an awareness of what you might need in relationships, as well as the quality of them. You have your ruler in your 1st house alongside the sun, and Mercury is retrograde at this point, retrograding all the way through till the 15th of September. And so there may be a sense now where you're really working internally, you're really thinking internally about yourself and your life and your relationships in general. Certainly there will be a self-assessment or reassessment in terms of how you show up in the world overall. This is probably true anytime Mercury is retrograde, but especially true while Mercury is in your own sign and retrograde, which doesn't happen as often. And it's a very powerful Mercury when it's in your sign, because Mercury is exalted and at home in Virgo. So I don't think you'll be able to ignore this. And the more that you have this opportunity to really contemplate, really open up to yourself and your role in relationships, I think the more you'll find some really helpful answers. Jupiter, which is ruling this moon, is in your 9th house. That's very much about what you're doing and your sense of purpose and your higher vision for your life. It can represent the father as well. 9th house is the father and or father figures. It could be a mentor or a counselor or a teacher of some kind. And this is something that is supporting you. It's a very supportive energy for you. It's in a trine to you, whether it's your sun or moon or rising sign. And so that's really helpful. And it's about to station retrograde. So it doesn't lose any of that helpfulness, but what it is perhaps more of a going back over things that have already been happening for the last couple of months. And maybe this is going to be a questioning about your sense of purpose, or a questioning in terms of your sense of what it is you believe, or what you are interested in knowing in the higher sense of knowledge. It can also be with representation of some kind of travel as well, or issue of foreign relations, or moving abroad, or living or working in a new situation. Also because Venus is in the 12th, and that can imply foreign connections as well. I won't go too deep into it, just to save some time. I will see you in the next video, and good luck with all that, Virgo. So Libra, you have this happening in your 6th house of health and everyday life, your schedule and your routines, and perhaps also obligations and duties. You have Saturn going through there since March, and Saturn is very helpful in the 6th house. Saturn allows you to restructure and get serious about your routines and how your life is. It's something that you can actually really find benefit from. Saturn works very well for Libra. Sometimes Libras are a little bit indecisive, not terribly clear, and not terribly sure, because they're often really focused on what other people want. And so Saturn actually provides a certain container, a certain sense of limitation that is really useful to the tendency that Libra might have. And so that depends, it depends on your natal chart, but of course that applies anyway if you're Libra, Sun, Moon, or Rising. And with Saturn on the moon, you might start to become aware of what's going on in your everyday life and whether that's actually good for you. You might be having some realization that might be already there in your awareness since June, or even since February, because this is a cycle that's kind of being called in between the moon and Saturn over these last few months. And with the sun in the 12th house, you might also have a sense of a need for rest, or a need for change in your schedule, change in your routine. This could be a need that is psychological or emotional. The 12th house is that, and you've got Jupiter in your 8th house of deeper psychological concerns, as well as Pluto in your 4th house, which is also that. It's what is the foundation of my life, also in those terms of what makes me happy, and what is my emotional state. And so there might be something here that's churning up in terms of burnout, or in terms of a sense of perhaps overwhelm. Do bear in mind that this is a movement of time. It's not a very long-lasting situation. So if you are grappling with something that's not easy, Saturn moon can make you feel quite lonely, for example. You might be feeling that you really don't have the support that you need. So it's a good time to take a step back. Mercury is there also with the sun in the 12th. Take a step back, take a breather, and rest. 12th house also is sleep. Get some sleep, rest, and don't take decisions if you're not in a good emotional place. So then, then you can be your true Libra self and leave the decisions for the time being. Don't settle on anything. And just for this period of time, a couple of weeks or so, if you're not sure, then let things go as far as you can, and rest. Take care of yourself. When you're feeling more vibrant, when you're feeling more energy, physically, mentally, etc., you'll make better choices. And I think this will just show you where it is that you feel that things need to change. For those of you who are not dealing with issues like that, and again, it's entirely dependent on your chart, then I think this can bring some great realizations around what it is that you're ready to embark on in terms of your daily schedule, routines that might support your health, for example, or just better efficiency at work, or even if it's issues around employees or colleagues, how to resolve that, things that become more clear, and how to resolve that. I don't think it's new stuff, because of this repeated cycle coming back over months. It's not something that is like, oh, that just happened. This is stuff that you're already dealing with. It's just now you're getting the realizations around that. So Libra, good luck with all of that, and I will see you in the next video. Scorpio, this is happening in your 5th house. So it's always lovely having a lunation in the 5th house. This is with regards to your creativity, or your sense of your entrepreneurship, for example, if you're in business for yourself. This would apply particularly strongly to the Scorpio rising, but it still applies to sun and moon. And And so this is something where you might be more aware of your desire for creative expression, or more aware of things that might have been held back, whether that be also in terms of your self-expression or in terms of your relationship with your children. This might be in the lives of your children, because Saturn going through the fifth can also show up things where we find that our children can have some difficulties, for example, that can come and go, or it can be a longer term difficulty that you're having to grapple with. And so there's more of your energy required for your children, represented by that fifth house. And so it's not directly related to your situation, except that you are the parent. So this might not be personal to you, but it might be in the role that you have as a parent. The sun is in the 11th house, and so there's definitely some illumination coming from the area of what it is that you'd like to see, how you aspire to the future, areas of friendships and groups that you might spend time with. This can also be about money. You've got Mercury there as well. Mercury is retrograde. You've got Venus in the 10th, which is also retrograde, and Jupiter in the 7th, which is also a business house. And so there might be quite a lot of considerations around your money, your earnings from work, earnings from the things that you do, questioning around the role that you have in business. This will be particularly so if you are working for yourself, but it will also apply even if you're not. I'd say this is even more true because you've got the North Node going through the 6th house going, am I doing the right thing? Does this need to change? And so I won't go too deep into all of that because it will depend on your individual chart. But I think that's bringing up something that could be very stimulating in terms of a desire for something that suits you better, whether it be in relationship to your children or in relationship to the work that you do or your creative output, and how that might affect your wallet. Right. Okay, Scorpio, good luck with all of that. I'll see you in the next video. Sagittarius, this is happening in your 4th house of home and family and property. The 4th house is whatever makes you happy, what makes you feel secure and stable. It can represent childhood as well. So there might be something here that you're becoming aware of with relationship to your parents, because this is the 4th and 10th house, the axis of the parents as well. But also your own role as a parent can be implied here. So there's something here in your awareness that might be psychological and intimate to you and what you're understanding, what you need in your own emotional or psychological self, or it could be with regards to what you need in terms of home and household security. Where do I live might be a question that you're asking right now. Am I in the right place? Am I happy where I live? All these questions that probably will be better answered only once Saturn moves direct, because Saturn is in that 4th house until beginning of 2025. Doesn't mean you're going to be miserable where you are for 2 more years, but it means that there's a lot of thought around where you live and the foundation of your life. And so this could be a very big question for you right now. And you might be finding some clarity around that. The full moon brings an awareness. It brings culmination or an understanding of things. Now, the sun is in the 10th house of career and social status as well. So maybe that's also part of the question. Maybe where you live is affecting how you work. Either your work is changing and you need to move, or you're thinking about that, or you're maybe contemplating even working from home. Moon in the 4th house is interesting for working at home. And then your ruler, Jupiter, is in the 6th house of everyday work. So I think work is very much on your mind at this point. Your day-to-day routine, your day-to-day work, all that stuff very much on your mind. And keeping in mind that Uranus, just before this full moon, Uranus stationed retrograde. And so that might be really having you feel stirred up and a bit confused around your day-to-day experience and around even potentially your health as well, although I don't suppose it's not necessarily that with Jupiter there. It's not necessarily about health. It's more, I think, what your day-to-day experience is. But again, that depends on your natal chart. So let some time, kind of go by. I don't feel that this is a long-term situation. It's going to be a big kind of game changer with Jupiter going retrograde. That will help you to see what's already gone and was that the right thing, and should you maybe revise that? That's your ruler, so always pay attention to what Jupiter's doing. And then with Saturn in the fourth, you are reestablishing a whole new foundation for your life that you're going to see evidence of when it reaches the seventh house in about 6-7 years, 7 or 8 years maybe. And then again in 15 years when it reaches the pinnacle of the chart, the 10th house. So take your time with these choices, Sagittarius, because sometimes Sagittarius jumps in and is very enthusiastic about things. And then it's like, oh crap, this might have not been the thing. And so this is an opportunity for you to become aware, let yourself sink into that awareness, and don't worry about the outcome. Let the outcome take its time. I know you probably are feeling more like you'd rather everything be sorted right now. Fire signs tend to be a bit impatient that way, but take your time and let things come to your awareness before you make any big decisions. Definitely let Venus go direct. And I think already, especially when Mercury goes direct by the middle of September, a lot of this will clarify itself. So hang in there, Sagittarius. Don't lose your big smile, and I'll see you in the next video. Capricorn, this is happening in your third house of everyday life and your surroundings and how you converse with people, how you relate to your siblings, for example, or your friends, your close friends. This is all about communication and exchanges of all kinds. So whether you're Capricorn, Sun, Moon, or Rising, if you are, for example, an entrepreneur, this is a great energy for you. You've also got Jupiter in the fifth, which really supports that as well. And now you've got Mars in the 10th. So there's a lot of dynamism here around work, around money, around communications, probably a lot of reconsideration around how you communicate or how you need to reframe things. This can be, for example, an awareness with the sun in the ninth house of what you really see as your purpose, what you see as your role, what you'd rather see, perhaps, especially with Mercury retrograde. Maybe you're really mulling over these things, reflecting us at the very least on the last few weeks, since Mercury entered shadow at the beginning of August. And then so with the Saturn in the third house, you can really dig in and find solutions. It gives you, third house is all about your willpower, and it's about goals, your kind of short-term goals. And with Saturn there, you have a lot of drive towards your goals. So it's your ruler as well, Capricorn. So it will bring you some real results. So even if things are not feeling comfortable right now, find that courage to let go. This is Pisces. Remember, the Pisces full moon is, listen to the introduction if you haven't already. Find that courage to let go. See what it is that you can really release at this time, and allow yourself then to reshape this whole third house. So good luck with all of that, Capricorn, and I'll see you in the next video. Aquarius, this is happening in your second house. That's a money house. It's everything that supports you. That includes your family, your food, how you eat, what you eat. It's the money that you earn, your income, but it's also your stuff, your belongings, your investments and things like that. And the sun is in the eighth house, which is all about things that you share with other people. So there might be something here where you are ready or perhaps needing to let go either of a source of income or of your stuff. That would be very much in line. Listen to the introduction if you haven't already. Be very much in line with what Saturn is asking you to do. get very clear about your finances, get very clear about your belongings, become perhaps a little bit more Spartan, more stoic with regards to what you're using, what you need, and find freedom, because Aquarius, that's always what you want. Find that freedom by living with less, for example. That's just an idea that would be, of course, dependent on your chart and your age and all of that stuff. But just in a general sense, it can be a very interesting time for you to really contemplate letting go. As a fixed sign, it's not always easy to do that and to move on from things. And you've got Jupiter in the fourth house. So there's quite a lot of awareness around your property, especially your home, family, your roots, what makes you happy. When Jupiter goes retrograde, Jupiter's ruling this moon. And when Jupiter goes retrograde as of the 4th, so just 3-4 days after this full moon, this could be an interesting time for you to really contemplate your drive for owning property or managing property, or what it is you need to do at home to feel comfortable, to feel secure. You'll be going over old territory as Jupiter retrogrades. It's going to bring you some awareness also of what it is that you need based on the last couple of months, as Jupiter keeps going back to about the 8th degree, which it was in June. So we're coming in again, this recollection of June. Definitely listen to the introduction, because we're calling in June again with the Jupiter as well. So the Sun and Mercury in the 8th house might require you to reassess business dealings, or the way that you receive money from other people, or issues around marriage, relationship issues, intimacy issues, things that need communication, things that need clarification. It's not necessarily bad. Wouldn't be a good time necessarily to sign a contract, for example. Venus is still retrograde in your 7th house of business partnerships and relationships of all kinds. And then Mercury is retrograde in your 8th house of other people's money, shared resources, and so on. So wait, if you need to do any contractual stuff, if you can, try and wait till the second half of September. But I would have to see your natal chart to know for sure, because sometimes things are perfectly fine in a retrograde. So Pisces, we are, of course, having this in the first house. I am a Pisces sun and stellium, but Cancer rising. And so for those of you with Pisces sun, moon, or rising, this will affect you. Or if you have a stellium, that will affect you as well. And so Saturn in the conjunction with the moon there in the first house is showing where there might need to be a change in terms of how you are, how you show up in the world, taking on a new role, new responsibility for yourself, primarily a new responsibility for your role in your community or in your life in general, especially because Jupiter is there in the 3rd house of community and your neighbors and how you are. There's a lot of engagement there all this year, because Jupiter is in Taurus until May 2024. Lots changing there as well. We've got Uranus stationing retrograde just before this full moon in the 3rd house. So big change in community, big change in the neighborhood, big change in how you are with your everyday friends, people that you see every day, as well as how you communicate. This can also be something to do with your business, if you work for yourself, for example, or if you're in partnership, particularly because the sun is in your 7th house of partnership. You've got Mercury very strong there, now retrograde. And also with that Jupiter Uranus in the 3rd house, there can be something calling in issues around work and partnership. Again, that would depend on your natal chart. Venus in the 6th house calls in work as well. Everyday schedule and habits and responsibilities there. Health as well. With Venus retrograde in the 6th, you might be feeling a little bit tired. You might be feeling a little bit stuck, overwhelmed, or just not really on form in terms of your everyday health. When Venus goes direct, that will improve from the 4th of September. Yeah, so Pisces, this is a new awareness of yourself in your roles, in your relationships, in your experience of other people. Go back to around your birthday time, February. The new moon was on the 20th of February, and also in June when Saturn was at the point of the new moon. So ignore the degree points here. Look for the introduction to find the actual degree points. So Pisces, make the best of this time, and definitely think in terms of yourself, what you need, what you're ready to let go of personally. And definitely listen to that introduction because it will affect you very personally as well. So all the best, Pisces, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.